Well, hello, and welcome everyone. Give me a quick second here to share my screen. Okay, you should be seeing my title slide and hearing my voice. If you can let me know that you can hear me okay, that would be awesome. Say a quick hello. I can hear you. Just go ahead and put that in the question box, the chat box. All right. Hi, Lawanya and Mark and Arthur and Don. Welcome. Thank you. All right. So great to have you here today. We are here to talk about the Business Analyst Blueprint. And one of the things I'm just so grateful for, love about my business, is that we get to provide so much content for free. So if you've been with us through the month of February, we've offered our free training. I've been doing some live coaching in our Facebook group. We have hundreds on Bridging the Gap, as well as almost like 100 videos now up on YouTube. So lots of ways that our business allows us to provide additional value, free value to support literally hundreds of thousands of people in the business analysis community. And this week is all about helping those of you who are ready move forward with the blueprint. So our focus in this webinar is about the questions we've been receiving from people who are interested or thinking about joining the blueprint, and to walk you through a few of those details. So I would just love to hear from you. Where are you watching from or listening in from? What's your job title? What are you doing now? Are you a business analyst? Are you thinking about becoming a business analyst? What kind of role are you in? And that can go in the question box or the chat box as well, too. It's always nice to know who's on the line and what your interest is. Just give that a minute. Okay, I got lots of I can hear yous. Awesome. Jenny says looking for a new project. Michelle says business analyst but not good at it. Farhan, business analyst from Calgary, welcome. Michelle's new to it. Don's a consulting manager, IT consulting with OCM and end user trading focus, joining from Arizona. Farhan's looking to learn. Awais is aspiring BA. Mark is from Atlanta, Georgia, CEO and founder of a tech startup. Awesome. Definitely useful skills in your business as well, Mark. Hasnain is from New Jersey and transitioning to a BA role. Daniel from London, I'm a business analyst, and Pooja looking for a business analyst role. So perfect. So mix of like we typically see in our programs, people who are business analysts looking to become business analysts, looking to scale to the next level in their career as well. So I'm going to start by answering some of the more frequently asked questions we've received already, and then I will open it up for any questions that you have as well, any specific questions. And I will answer questions that come in through the chat or question box, and I would love to have a conversation. So when we get to that point, feel free to raise your hand. I see a couple hands raised already, so I will definitely we'll be able to pull you off mute and we can have a conversation. And, usually like the first question you ask, there's like a question a couple layers deep. So it's nice to have a conversation about that question and get to the real question so we can make sure to answer it for you. But we've been receiving like a lot of questions about why business analysis, right? So sorry, I missed the name, but Mark, who's director of a startup, like why business analysis might be a question that gets asked, like what's the purpose of business analysis, right? And so this is the manifesto that I wrote nearly 10 years ago. Bridging the Gap has been in place now for 10 years. We are an endorsed education provider with IIBA and PMI. And before we got to this point that we are today, I just sat down and like, what does a business analyst mean to me? And this manifesto has resonated and still resonates with people in the community. And a core piece of it is out of chaos, we create order. Out of disagreement, we create alignment. Out of ambiguity, we create clarity. But most of all, we create positive change for the organizations we serve. And it's really this like positive change piece that I think is so critical. People who are called into the profession, they want to solve problems. People who know they need business analysts have problems that need to be solved. We want to make our organizations more efficient, deliver better value, make our projects run more smoothly. And these are the kinds of things that we do as business analysts by creating order, creating alignment, and creating clarity through our requirements. And I forgot to mention, I apologize, also with me today is Jamie. Jamie's been replying to some of you already, but she's going to be sharing some links and some resources as we have questions that maybe we have resources that go into more depth. So thank you, Jamie, for being here. I apologize for kind of just jumping in and not introducing you. Okay. So what does a business analyst do? And what do we cover in the blueprint? This is another big question that we've received quite a bit. Like, what's covered in this program and why are those skills important? So this is a visual model that we use to articulate what I see as the key industry standard business analysis techniques. And they are also the industry standard techniques we teach in the blueprint, and we teach them because they are the key techniques. So we split the blueprint up into different kinds of requirements or different views or levels of the requirements, as well as analysis and communication. I'm going to talk about both. So from a view perspective, we talk about the business level, the software level, and the information level. So what is the business process? How does the business flow? What does the software do? This doesn't have to be how is the software built, or what technology are we using, or what coding program language are we using. It's how functionally does the software need to interact with the user who's using that system. So it's the what of the software requirements, not the how. And the information level being, how do we store information in our organization? How do we manage that information? What do our business users need to know about how we store and manage information? Again, not the technical, how do we build the database to manage that information, but that interface of what is the business, what are the pieces that the business feels are important to store and manage so that the database can be built in a way that truly serves the business. So this is kind of a crash course on the 3 levels. If you've gone through the free training, we go into these in more depth in that free training. So I can answer questions around that here, but I won't bore you with all of that here. The thing I want to really emphasize, though, is this analysis versus communication, because what I do see is a lot of focus on the output, the deliverable, the document, the technique, right? How do I document the process? What do I put in my BRD? What does the requirements look like? And that is super important. So when you're using these techniques, they help structure your analytical thinking and walk you through a process to organize the information you have in a highly structured way so that you can appreciate and find the gaps of the requirements that you don't have, which allows you to ask questions, really powerful questions. So the analysis techniques, they are super, super important to get right. But where the real gold comes from as business analysts is how we communicate about those requirements with our business and technical stakeholders. It's not enough to have a perfect document if that document doesn't express true business needs. So we need to be discovering what that process is with a business stakeholder. We need to be validating what's in those requirements with our business stakeholders and with our technical developers. We need to be using a tool like a glossary to make sure that everyone in our organization is using the same terms in the same way. So glossary is a super simple technique, right? It's a term and a definition. It's like creating a dictionary. So the template for that, is super simple. But the elegance comes, and one of the things we cover in that lesson is like, how do you actually get people to use terms in the same way, right? So part of it is, yes, figuring out what those right terms are and what they mean in your organization. And then part of it is creating a culture where everybody's starting to use those terms in the same way so that you have clarity. So you're turning ambiguity into clarity, creating order out of chaos. Did I get that right? Yeah, I got that right that time. Okay, so that's why all these techniques are important, and you want to be thinking about both how do you analyze requirements and how do you communicate about those requirements. One of the questions we got coming into, somebody emailed us this morning after registering, was around creating good meeting agendas and knowing what to go into a meeting prepared for versus what questions to ask. And so I always say, like, a meeting needs to have a purpose, right? You're either using one of these deliverables to structure that agenda, or you have a decision that needs to be made. And often that decision will be supported by some sort of an analysis technique. So for example, if you're trying to decide what updates to make to a piece of software, you might use a use case to do that, a step-by-step flow of how that system works. Or you might have to take a step back and say, well, what's the business process here? How do we actually want this to flow? And then, so you might go through the business process in order to figure out what software requirements you need to update, and what are the improvements, right? So you're bringing a draft to a meeting like that in order to facilitate a great discussion and in order to come up with really intelligent questions, because you've used the model to put together the information you have and discover what you don't. And that's where the questions are for those meetings. Okay, so a lot of questions we received too are about how does the program work? So there is a combination in our program of on-demand training, real-world experience, and instructor support. And so I'm going to walk through each of these step by step. So the on-demand training is all in our portal. You get access for each of the lessons that we just talked about in the blueprint. You get access to video, audio, transcript, as well as any templates or work samples that you might need to complete that. So when we teach business process, you get sample Visio files with workflow diagrams and our business process template and examples of how that would be filled out, as well as in the communication aspects, like how do you create an agenda for a discovery session, and even a script for like how would you open that discovery session so you're setting the stage for a truly productive working meeting. So we give you assets that help you use that skill in your real world environment. And that's all on demand. It's very flexible and convenient. You get to go through that whenever it works for you. It's a big value of the program that we don't have like 4-hour training calls where you have to show up live and then it's like 4 hours of too much information. It's all broken down into bite-sized pieces that you can go back to again and again. And then the second piece is the real-world experience. And this is what really starts to set the program apart. So you create your own case study. I'm going to give you a lot of examples from some past participants of how this works. But you essentially, as you go through each lesson and each technique, there's an assignment. Host your own meeting, analyze a process, improve that process, write a use case, right? So you are applying these techniques in your real world work, and this works even if you aren't a business analyst and even if you are currently looking for your next opportunity. I'm going to share some specific examples here in a minute. And you receive that instructor validation on that. So that's a big piece of it, because we don't just say, oh, go apply it in the real world. And go it on your own, and fingers crossed it works out for you. This is where the confidence comes from in actually applying the skills, and you have our instructor support along the way. So we have live webinars, which we only do as part of the blueprint. It's one of the only programs that we are able to offer live webinars. It's not something that we do for our individual modules. We have individualized email support. So when you have a question, you get matched up with an instructor, you get to receive individual personal email support, confidential, so it's questions about the course materials or how to apply them in your work. And then we have small group instructor hours as well. So throughout the program, as we get into the work experience part where you're actually going from learning to real world experience, we have up to 18 instructor hours scheduled throughout the program. We don't expect that anyone attends all 18 of them. They're at different days and times to accommodate different work schedules and different time zones. And to have that small group setting where you get to learn from a few peers, and you also get to ask your specific questions of anywhere you're stuck on your work. And this is what all comes together to really create confidence Because what you find is when you learn and apply and receive that validation from an instructor, when they review that work and give you an assessment of it, then you know that you can do what you thought you could do. And through that process, you do earn 36 professional credits, and that's what you need to apply for, say, the CBAP with IIBA or the PBA certification with PMI. We do get started next Thursday, February 28th, which is why we're hosting this webinar today to answer any final questions. Our last day to register is next Tuesday. Okay, take a quick sip of water. I saw a question, how is the workforce demand, India asks, for BAs? So we're seeing like lots and lots of demand, I think, for business analysis. And the reports that I see are that the job role is growing and that the need for business analysis is growing. When you think about the skills that we just covered, those are essential for any kind of software project, any sort of business process change project. You need to have somebody who's looking at the business process, the software, and understanding how is this all going to work to serve the community. Now, the person who's doing that work may or may not have the title of business analyst, but they do exist on any project that has that positive outcome. So the other thing I will tell you about the marketability is this is the average salary of a business analyst in the United States. This is from the 2017 salary report from IIBA. And what I can tell you, they've just finished up, they're getting ready to release the 2018 study. It's not public yet, but I was actually speaking with Ken Fulmer of IIBA last week, and I don't know what the number is, but he did say for the first time, the salary number for business analysts has actually eclipsed the salary number for project managers, which was super surprising to me. So when I started this business and we were training business analysts, everybody came to me wanting to become a business analyst so they could become a project manager. And I'm like, wait a minute, this business analysis thing is so fun. Like, we can build a career here. We just got to figure out how to do it together, right? And so now we're kind of seeing that tide start to shift a little bit, where we do see project managers coming to us to get the career experience and the training to also either expand their project management role into business analysis or to move into more of a business analysis job role. So we're seeing that as well, which is pretty exciting. And then I always hear people say, well, is this for real? Like, this isn't what I make, or, it's not what my company offers, because there's a lot of companies that are not truly valuing a business analysis professional. So I did want to share Amelia's story. Amelia just posted this in our Blueprint community last week. I think it was last week, maybe the week before. Time has been flying fast in February. And she just got offered a job in Nashville, Tennessee, in a lead position at $90,000 a year. And $90,000, I know it's a little less than that average that we spoke about. One thing about that specific local area here in the US, it's like the cost of living varies widely among areas in the US. And I would say, like, Nashville, Tennessee is not a huge city. It's not one of the areas with the higher cost of living. So I think this salary in that location is a really big deal. And I definitely know it was a really big deal to Amelia. It was a $20,000 difference over what she was making this time last year when she initially joined the Blueprint. And the other thing I want to share about Amelia's story is she had the business analyst job title when she joined the program. But when we talked about that real world experience and that application, she had the title, but she couldn't actually find a way to use those techniques in her job that had the title of business analyst. So she volunteered for a role in her husband's organization and use that to apply these techniques in a real world environment. And so that was her path, right, or part of her path. And then a couple of months into the program, she actually ended up in a consulting role, and where she was doing more business analysis work. And now fast forward a year, and she's at this point in a business analyst lead position. And I share that because part of her success was showing up for herself and finding a way through the, like, well, my company won't let me do this kind of resistance I hear a lot, or nobody's giving me this opportunity. Like, she created this opportunity. She made the investment in herself. She found a way to apply it. She worked really hard to make sure she finished the program, and then now she's seeing the payoff from that as well. And so it's a real affirming case study for me in the program, but also what happens when you show up for yourself and decide to go forward with something big like this. So we also received a question from somebody in a more senior role. She's like, well, I'm already making $100,000 a year. I'm 54. I've got like 10 years left that I want to work. How might this help me? And, answer is going to be a little bit different for everyone. What I can share with you is Annette Richards' story. So Annette was also in the spring session in 2018, and she actually participated in our fall session again as well. And she was in a lead role where she was overseeing the work but not directly managing for business analysts. And when I checked in with her at the beginning of this year, and Jamie's going to share a link to the case studies as well, where you can read through or listen to or watch. In this case, I have a video with Annette and listen to her whole story. She shares a lot of tips about getting started as a manager and like what actually went into that success for her as a manager. But part of the piece with the blueprint was feeling really confirmed that the way that she was doing the business analysis techniques was truly an industry standard. Because I know before I became a manager, like I could trust myself to always like figure things out, right? And if you're more senior and experienced here, you might be like, I kind of trust myself to always figure things out, but I don't actually know how to teach that to somebody else, or at least I didn't at that time, right? We've been through that now because we've taught hundreds of people these skills now and seen how they work across different countries, different industries, different locations. Like now it's a tested, structured process. At the time though, I felt like I was just making things up as I went along, and I could trust myself. I didn't know how to trust other people. And part of that leap is realizing that the techniques you use truly are repeatable, structured techniques that work in a variety of situations. And when you build that structure for a team, they can achieve a similar result. And so Annette at this point has 15 business analysts on her team. They were all new and inexperienced. They didn't have experience as a business analyst before they got into her team. So she has built that team from the ground up and put that structure and plot in place. And a large part of it comes from the techniques and that affirmation she got in the blueprint. Okay. And just a couple more scenarios of questions. And I see we've got a lot of questions in the chat box too. So what if I'm not employed? And this was a pretty common scenario from the people on the call. Either I'm looking for my next position, or I'm in between positions, or what does my next BA role look like? And Perry was one of our also 2018 participants, and he volunteered like Amelia, right? Amelia didn't have the opportunity. She was working, but didn't have the opportunity at work. So Perry was in between positions. He volunteered at a local charity to go through the blueprint tasks. And he actually put aside certification plans. He was planning to get certified in the ISEB, which is a very common certification in the UK for business analysts. And he put that aside and worked on the blueprint instead, because he saw that the gap between the jobs he wanted to apply for and the skills and experience he had was more about using the techniques than what was covered by that certification. So I was really excited. About a month after he finished the blueprint, he landed like 2 job offers in the same week. So he got 1 and he celebrated that, and then he came back, I have 2 to consider, and so he was making his choice between them. But the piece here that he attributes it to is that practical boost in my skills and the confidence, right? So when you are unemployed, especially, you need to feel that confidence when you apply for the position, feeling like you actually have a chance and that you have the skills to do it, versus like, I'm just going to put 100 job applications out there and I hope something sticks, right? Like, no, this is my job. I have the confidence in this. And then when you go to the interview, you need to be able to clearly explain what you can do for that organization, right? And you want to be able to talk about ways that you've done that in the past. And that's the kind of thing that Perry was able to do when he went through the blueprint. Okay. So similar is I'm employed, but I'm not in a business analyst role. So how can this work? We've had people who, project managers we talked about, Rashni here was a support analyst, right? So she was doing very similar work day to day, doing like setting up new users, kind of managing the maintenance of a system, but from a more customer support role, not like a real technical role. And what she did is she got so excited about business analysis, she actually went to her organization and started volunteering for different projects, and just found herself just 4 weeks into the program in a part-time role as a business analyst. So she was doing her support analyst on one side and business analysis on another. And the process that she started with was she analyzed the process to set up new users, which was one of the big things that she did in her support analyst role. So she figured that out from a business process perspective. By the time we got to the use cases module, she was doing that on an active project for her company, working under a project manager and getting some extra experience. Okay, and then the final question that we'll speak to here before I take the questions live on the call is, what if I've taken another course? So we see a lot of people come to our programs after like getting a certificate program at a university, or in this case, Zachary, he was one of our fall participants. He's a tax analyst, so he's still looking for his first business analyst position, but in that business analyst position, or in his tax analyst position, he was able to leverage all the techniques in the blueprint and apply them on the job. So his reflection on that was like, I had this business analysis class in college, but I really needed to get my hands on performing those functions to know that I could do them. And so he was able to do that, process flow diagrams and things like that, in his role as tax analyst to get that next level of confidence. So he's holding meetings, starting to do requirements gathering, just kind of working his way in. So he has that experience to speak about in interviews as well. So those are some of the more frequently asked questions we've received. And I really like to speak to past course participants because it takes me out of theory. This is our mantra at Bridging the Gap: get out of theory and into practice, right? How does this actually work for specific people, and how can we make it work for you? So definitely one of our mantras at Bridging the Gap. I hope I just demonstrated that here as well. That did take a little bit longer than I thought it was going to, but I think it was valuable to hear how some of these experiences work and what you can expect by choosing to show up for yourself in this way. Okay, so at this point, I see lots of questions in the chat box. I'm going to take a couple from the chat, and then I will check for hands up and see what conversations we can have. Okay, so you mentioned we several times in terms of instructor support. Can you answer who's we? Yes, thank you. So we actually have 6 instructors and 2 course administrators that help support this program. So I'm the CEO founder of the company. I've created all the materials, created the structure. I usually have a slide with all their beautiful pictures, and I don't have that this time. But we have 6 instructors who are all trained in our materials, and most of who are practicing business analysts and do this on the side as it's like what I love about our instructors is they feel called to do this work to support the profession. And of course, it's a paying role for them as well, but you're getting that benefit of a company organized around training and people who are doing this in addition to bringing their own practical and extensive experience in business analysis jobs as well. So that's we, and then we also have Jamie and Marcy who help administer the courses and keep us all on track and flowing. So if you have any other questions about that, Mark, let me know. Great question. Let's see. Oh, my question box just flew around from me. Okay. Sorry, these were people sharing. We answered that one. Is the certificate from this course enough to get a BA position? India asks. So what goes into, I hesitate around this question because I see a lot of training providers provide placement guarantees and guarantee that you are going to get a job as a result of their program. And I don't do that out of integrity, because there is so much that goes into getting a business analyst position, from the training you have, the experience you have, how you show up in an interview, how you put together your resume, how you're able to speak to that experience, right? So there are a lot of factors that go into that. What I can share are case studies like Amelia's and Perry's, that this is what closed the gap for them. And these are the techniques that would be considered the core industry standard techniques that underlie the vast majority of BA positions out there, especially the ones that are on projects that have a software component. So you will find jobs, though, where they're looking for industry experience, and they're looking for a specific kind of tool experience, or they're looking for these other layers of experience. This training is in those core skills that underlie the vast majority of jobs, and there might be other pieces as well that you need to pick up. But we do see people obviously use the program to get into their next position. Okay, let's see. Arthur says, I understand the program is held twice a year. What other time might you be rerunning this program? So we run it once or twice a year. Our next program is tentatively scheduled for September, and we run it in the fall. And I would just like to invite anyone who's thinking about waiting also to think about the opportunity cost of waiting. Like, I don't want to do it like a hard sell around that, but sometimes there's ways to reshift how you're thinking about things, and where do you want to be at the end of the year? Because when you join the fall program, that runs through January. So you're talking about now 2020 before you're done, right? And so sometimes finding the way to move that up now, because there's a reason you're listening in now when you got involved in the free training now, and you're thinking about this now, we can put these things off and kind of find reasons to put things off, which is kind of think about the opportunity cost for you and what it might mean career-wise as well. Okay, and then I saw a question about timing and what's the time commitment for the course. So it's intensive program, right? You might be like, oh my gosh, do I have to take off work? I'm really glad I got this question. So it's really designed to be completed in 2 to 3 hours a week. So each module is spread out over 6 weeks. You get new training modules or new training each of the first 3 weeks. And then the second part of that 3 weeks is really designed for your time to be practicing and applying. And so it's a 36 credit program. It's designed to be completed in 36 hours. I'm sure there's participants who spend way more than that, because they go deep dive with her, with their materials, and kind of working and reworking things, and trying to apply and get the most out of their experience. But the minimum, or what it's designed to be, is about a 36 credit hour program over the span of 4 months. So a lot of that is the on-demand materials that you can go through when it works for you, as well as that real world experience. So that's built into those hours. So there's time for listening to learning how to analyze a business process, and then there's time in that 36 hours for actually analyzing a business process, which could be part of work you're doing anyway as a business analyst, if you are a business analyst right now. Okay, great questions. All right, let me see if we still had a hand up. Here we go. Ahmed, hi.
Hi there, how are you?
Good, how are you? We speak again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got your message. I will be forwarding my actually the letter of information today.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you sent me a link. That link is the link I should use for them to come back to register with you, right?
Right.
That link is connected with my cookies and all that, right?
Right.
Or not?
Yes, both of those links are.
Oh, good. That's what I wanted to know. So.
Okay.
Okay, so this would be done, and then I would have the other mailings. Mass mailing is also there, so I would
Yeah.
finish
Yeah,
this.
and I want to make sure. For context, Ahmed is going to help reach out to some of his community about the blueprint as well, and we have a
Yeah.
referral engagement. So I do want to make sure we are. I thought maybe you had a question about the blueprint, the offer. Yeah, I would prefer to talk about like our partnership stuff in a different forum.
Okay,
That's
okay.
okay.
I'm
Yeah,
talking to
thank
you
you.
again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
But happy to answer all of those questions
Wonderful.
afterwards. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. Daniel. Oop. Daniel.
Yes. I want to ask if you allow for someone to be able to raise groups of people interested in this course and do it together.
Yes. Are you thinking for your team or?
For my team.
Yes. And are you thinking of having them join this session, or do you want something specific to your company?
Well, it's not my company. It's a team of colleagues together that we're learning.
Okay.
Not at work, but from different. Some are about to be BAs. Some are BAs already.
Okay. Yeah, we have done private sessions for organizations, that have teams of, say, 10 or more business analysts. There usually is an additional investment to organize it as a private session versus participating in one of our public sessions. I'd be happy to talk about it, though, for any sort of group, really. Yeah.
Okay.
Although, economically, your best decision would be to join our public program and then maybe have your own kind of study group around that.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any other questions I can answer around that?
I'm fine for now.
Okay.
Thank
awesome.
you.
And that would be like each individual that wanted to participate joining. But yeah, okay. All right, let's see. Okay, there we go. Michelle.
Hi, how does it work if you're unable to keep the pace of the program? You fall behind due to, life, or, you get assigned to a busy project that takes a lot of your time
Yeah.
at work. Is there extra time that would be provided, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So we do understand that life does come up, and we encourage people to make it a priority. So what we do, each module has a deadline for finishing and submitting that workbook. And if something comes up at somewhere in the program, we have an extension period for one of those workbooks at the end of the program. So you essentially get a pass for one module and then can use your makeup period for that.
Oh, okay, just one. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, what we found is, so we used to not have deadlines throughout the program, and we would have people wait till the very last day and submit all 3 of their workbooks on all 3 of the modules. And it's really not, it was overwhelming for us as an instructor, right? But it's also really not in service to you as a participant, because so much of the value comes not just in finishing that work, but having the instructor support along the way and asking the questions along the way and doing it the first time and then seeing how it could apply in another area of your BA work, over the span of that time. And so we started to put some more accountability into place around the program for that reason. Yeah.
So when you say it's 3 hours a week, is that a real 3 hours? Because I took a course later in the last year, and it was supposed to be about 3 to 4 hours a week, and it just wasn't that for me, and it caused me to fall behind, and I don't think I get true value out of the program, which is why I'm looking at other programs.
Right. Yeah, and in that program, what was the part that was was taking more time?
Listening to the videos and understanding them. Yeah, just listening to the videos, understanding them, going through everything, going through the questions, because you don't want to go take the test until you understand what you read.
Right.
Yeah. So it just
was. So we don't have tests. So and if you submit, so the test for us is that you actually analyze the process and you create a use case. And if you submit and don't pass the first time, you get feedback that helps you improve, and then you get to resubmit. And so we would rather people submit on time and then use the feedback to come back a second time, rather than over invest and over perfect before sending it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the 3 hours is more so for going through the material, but the time it takes you to do your use case is really up to you.
Right, and actually that includes some time to do your use case. So like the use case lesson, I think, is maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, and then there's another one on like revising that use case. Okay. So you might have an hour to 2 hours of content on that technique specifically, and then an hour to 2 hours that's already allocated to you completing that use case. It might take you 4, right? But there is time built into that 2 to 3 hours even to complete those.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that sound like a reasonable commitment to you?
I'm thinking it might be. I'm still up in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And how about the material? I'm sorry to monopolize the questions. Just my last question. How about the material? Do you get to keep it, like download the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you get online access for at least 6 months, and then we give you actual. Like I've done programs where they want you to download like every video, right, individually, and it's a hassle. So from a space perspective, we can't like do one zip file with everything. It just kind of explodes things, but we do one zip file per module so that it's a relatively easy thing for you to download them for future use.
Oh, perfect. Now that's
Thank you. Let me know if anything else comes up.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great questions. Okay. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Let's go back to what's in the chat. Yeah, so one question to speak with me. I am doing some one-on-one consultations around the blueprint. You can email that info@bridgingthegap, and Jamie will get that to you. And just give us a quick email with what you're looking to cover in that call, and then we'll get you a link to book a meeting with me. Okay. Let's see.
I just wanted to say that I also put a bunch of links in the chat boxes, which may help answer some of these questions too.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Awais asks, is there a tool or checklist which can be used to verify my current or past experience qualifies as BA experience? Yes. I don't know if you have this link, but somewhere on our website we have a skills assessment, and it essentially walks you through the techniques we covered in the blueprint slide, as well as our BA process, our framework, and that would be a useful tool. But I would just go and look at the blueprint like this. I'm going to actually go back to it here. And which of these techniques do you have experience in and which don't you, as an initial checklist. And India asked, so would I be telling the truth that I'm a certified BA without taking the IIBA test? So I'm assuming you're asking, India, in the context, when you complete the blueprint, would that be telling the truth? You can say that you have received a certificate, that you have recent training, and that you have business analysis experience. You would not want to say, I have an XYZ certificate, like an IIBA certificate. Can you say you are a certified BA? Like, I think there are people who would say that, and I don't know that it's technically wrong. It's also not technically correct. There are also other providers who say that they're providing certifications, so they don't analyze and document the experience requirements like you do when you're getting a PMI or IIBA certification. And that's why we say we provide you with a certificate of completion and not a certification. But I really am looking into how could we call this a certification, because it's the next level beyond. When you think about taking a test, that demonstrates something very, very different than what you are doing is you're submitting work for instructor review that's getting validated and assessed, like your actual work product as a business analyst. So to me, this is above and beyond what is implied by doing a test-based or an exam-based certification. Okay. And question from Jenny, do we need to submit any case studies or assignments as part of the course curriculum? And Jamie did a great job answering that one for you personally, but I'll just answer it for the group as well. Like, yes, this is part of what you do in the, let's see. So you receive the on-demand training, you apply this in your own work, and you receive instructor support as you go. So it would be an example. Essentially, we have a workbook for each module that you submit and pull this all together in, but it's essentially a work product that goes into your workbook that demonstrates each of these techniques. And it's not like for the glossary, just as an example, it's not like a 30-page glossary. It's like 5 terms, right? And even for the ERD, the entity relationship diagram, it's not what you might have seen of a spider web of 25 terms and primary keys. It's 5 business concepts and how do those relate in your organization. So it's a high level business focused view of the information, not a data level, like in-depth data level technical view. And it really, what I found is that technique in particular can really shift conversations and shift levels of understanding. And so a lot of times you're creating even smaller pieces than you might create in a full-fledged work environment. So it's not, to the other question we received, right? You don't have to spend hours and hours and hours doing this. It can be a snapshot to get you started. Okay. Just gonna check if there's any hands. Okay. Okay. And Jessica, so Jessica, those questions here are more around coaching, and we're really trying to focus on the blueprint questions here. I will say, in terms of gathering and documenting the requirements and identifying stakeholders, you want to use, like, in each of these levels, like especially in the business process, who's involved in that business process. And so in your scenario of a data management or an IT group, like your business stakeholder could be an IT stakeholder. So don't get like hung up that because this is a data focused process, we don't have a business stakeholder. The IT stakeholder can be the business stakeholder for that process. We've had people in IT document their release management process, their data management process, their software development process, right? Those are business processes when you are documenting, not from the perspective of how does the software work, but how do we as software developers manage and release software or manage and maintain data. So you could use these techniques and everything that I've shared about, you know, using them to come up with agendas for your meeting and discover the gaps and ask the questions to inform that kind of a process as well. Okay, let's see. Oh, Jackie asked, I'm currently trying to transition from a nursing to a BA role. A friend shared your link with me. Well, thank you to your friend. And I've been receiving your mail. My role as a school nurse revolves mostly around 70% administrative and IT, wondering how to move from point A to point B. Yeah, so where you want to go is look for the opportunities to apply what the techniques that are up here on this slide, right? So if you are administrative and IT, it's almost always the first place to start is analyzing a business process. So what are you doing administratively and how can you analyze that process? Put a clear starting point and ending point around it. then what software improvements might help you improve that process? And what data are you managing around that process, right? And using these techniques in your role as a nurse, which, because there's that administrative component, there are definitely opportunities to use all of these techniques. So that's where I would start. And then you're going to figure out, is this really the right role for you? You're going to have some experience to speak to, and then start looking at BA jobs like in the healthcare area or in the school area to leverage the experience and the domain experience you have. Okay. Daniel asks, do I still have my discount when I register later in the year? So for those people who have joined the BA Essentials or one of our past programs before, we offer discounts to join the program. So if you are on here and you've done that, let us know and we can get you whatever your code is. Daniel, I don't know your specific situation. We usually honor those mostly for the next session, sometimes for 2 sessions. So if you can email that in to our team, they'll be able to tell you with your kind of purchase, they'll be able to tell you specifically where you fall in that. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you, Mark. Mark says you've twice demonstrated your integrity, finding a job the way you answered the person considered finishing on time. Well, thank you for that. That is a big value in our company and how we work. So Arthur asked, do you have payment plans? Yes. So the full investment is $2,997, and you can get started with a $997 deposit and 3 payments of $797. And can this be reimbursed for employees? Has that even been the case in the past? Yes, we've seen several people submit this to their employers and request reimbursement for training. We've had employers pay it in advance as well. So we do, Jamie, if you are able to pull one of the manager resources links from one of the emails that we've been sending, we do have a specific video and resource page and guide that you can send to your manager as well. That gives some materials that's more manager oriented to them, but we've definitely seen people have it reimbursed. Okay. And it depends on the criteria of your specific employer. Awais asked, does the Blueprint count towards completing the IIBA certification requirement? Yes. So when you earn your certificate of completion from us by completing all 3 of your workbooks and getting those instructor reviewed, you earn 36 professional credits, and that's what you need to apply for the CBAP with IIBA. Okay. Arthur asked, does the course cover technical skills like Python, Tableau? No. Yeah. We are talking about technology from the perspective of requirements, from the what and not the how. Okay. And I am not a technologist. You would not want me teaching you Python or Tableau. All right. I think I'm going to just kind of scan through. I'm going to first see, did anyone else raise their hand? If you have a question and we haven't answered it yet, go ahead and get it back into the chat box. I see Michelle has her hand raised. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, question. Yeah. So as far as your payments, my job would pay for this up front. I mean, I'm sorry, they wouldn't pay for it up front. I would have to pay up front and get reimbursed once I submit, proof that I completed the program.
Yep.
Problem with that is that it would be 6 months later. The last program I took, they did a thing where once I showed them that my job signed off on it, the form that my job approves it, they were able to wait to bill me about, I think they billed me about 3 weeks before I completed the program, so that I wasn't having to start paying for that, so that I didn't have to really pay for it. I put it on a credit card and I didn't have to pay for it prior to getting reimbursed from my employer. Do you do anything like that?
We never have done anything like that, I'll be honest. And I guess I would have, we haven't. And I would have to look at how that process is looking for you internally, because it would be a big financial risk from our perspective, right? To kind of withhold the payment, it would be until essentially June. And the other piece of that is like part of that completing the course is also dependent on you following through on the course, right? So we would be taking that risk as well. So that would be a challenging one for me to say yes to, but I don't want to say absolutely no right now.
Okay, just to let you know, they had a set date that they were going to charge my card no matter what, whether I was completing it, whether I was up.
Gotcha. Okay.
There was
okay. Yeah, I would have to think that one over.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Like. Kermit asks, could you go back to the previous page showing the techniques? Sure. There you go, Kermit. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to just scan through and see if I missed anything. Sajan had asked, I have 11 years of professional experience in the financial domain, but don't have an undergraduate degree. Do you need a college degree to become a business analyst? We do see a lot of business analyst job roles requiring a college degree, and there's always a small handful that don't, but it is pretty common. But we see, especially people with that much professional experience, it is more possible to make it into the business analyst job role, but it is a really common requirement. I myself have hired business analysts without college degrees, and they were amazing because they have the skills and the experience and the practical know-how. Okay. But some employers are not quite so flexible about that. Okay. Michelle says, it has been said that you don't have to be technical to be a BA, yet I'm working in a role and found that my biggest struggle is the understanding of the technical side of things in order to understand the business needs and communicate effectively. Yes, so there is, how do I want to put this? I'm glad we're up on this slide, so thank you, Kermit. There's like an analytical level of detail that you do need to get really good at to be effective as a business analyst. And this is why we teach use cases and ERDs and system context diagrams. Like, these are not technical skills in the sense that they are not how do you build software or how do you use that software or how do you configure that software. But they are the structures that you need to think through what your requirements are and what those business needs are in a way that gets to the level, like the technical level or the software level of detail, right? So when you learn and to express what your business wants at these levels, it starts to help you be more effective at communicating with software teams, and it helps you start to think through the kinds of questions that a developer is going to ask you about the requirements before you go to them. So we do find a lot of, like, in the blueprint, people either come with a bunch of technical knowledge and have trouble with this first module on the business process because it's like such a higher level kind of thinking than they're used to. Or they come with the business knowledge and they kind of fly through the first module. They're like, this is easy. And then when we shift gears into the use case level at the second module, the software level, this is where there's like a conceptual hurdle to get through. And I don't say that to scare anyone, but it's actually like, it's the piece you need to know, right, in order to communicate effectively about what the business needs with the software requirements. And so the business model, like, fly through, and then you get to the software level and you're like, this is a little different. But then once you get it, and that's part of that instructor support, is making sure that you get it, right? And that's why we have all these ways to get the feedback and the questions and to work through this. Then it becomes easier from then on out. And that's what I think is so important about the process. Okay, so great question. Okay, and I think, Indy asks, what software do we need to complete all the tasks in the course? Great question. So we all of our templates are in Microsoft Word and Excel. And for the visual models, like the entity relationship diagram and the business process model, they're in Visio. You don't need Visio though. You can use, there's free trial of Visio. We also have free trials of like Lucid Charts. We have people complete in those tools. For wireframing, there's some free software or free trials of software, and we provide templates and swipe files in Balsamic, a tool called Balsamic. So we allow you to use whatever software you might have to complete that model. And we also accept, this might sound weird, but we accept clearly written, clearly drawn, like hand-drawn models as well, because it's less, what we're teaching you is less about how to use the tools and how to complete that kind of analysis. So as long as you can show us, this is what my hand-drawn wireframe might look like, or what it might look like up on the whiteboard, right? And it matches with what you put in your use case, you're good from the requirements of the course. So there's no specific software that you need to use. We have a lot of free trials and low cost options, or you can use whatever you might have that works for these models. Okay, great question. Okay. So do you see we are at the top of the hour? I had one last thing I wanted to cover. And India says, LOL, stick figures will do. Yes, as long as we can read it and you can take a good picture and you can send it in electronically, right? We're good. So I just want to invite you and close with an invitation. I will stick on if there are more questions, but like if there's a reason you're here and if there's a reason you haven't decided, please do yourself a favor and get clear on what that reason is so that I can help you get to a yes or a no, okay? Either way is fine, right? But like sometimes we can just let these things dangle and like, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that. Oh, the deadline passed. I guess I'm not doing that, right? So I'm just trying to help you get to a clear yes or no that's right for you. And if it feels a little like I'm working hard to sell you, it might. I'm not trying to specifically, but in a way I am. And it's because I have seen these success stories and I know in my heart and trust in my soul that there are people on this call that we can help step into more confidence and success. And it's like my honor and privilege to do this work. It's the honor and privilege of our instructors and our admins to do this work. Like we love this stuff. And I know how easy it is too, when you make investments like this, to come up with what seems like a very rational reason to not move forward now, and which is why I wanted to talk about all those reasons in our call today and answer your questions. So I've just seen how much this can help people, and I invite you to consider joining us. Next Tuesday is the last day to join, so we do have some time. I'm open to answering any questions that you have about what's right and what's not right for you. But I do want to call you forward if it's your time. To think about what's the opportunity cost of not choosing to move forward now? What does it look like if you wait till the fall or next year and next year becomes 5, right? What might things look like for you in terms of your next level of earning potential, the opportunities to do this kind of work, which quite frankly is super enjoyable for those of us who love it and for those of us who we see move forward with the program. Like it's the thing that unlocks a lot of potential for them and a lot of fulfillment and joy in their work as well, because they become those problem-solving agents of change in their organization. So that's my last comment. I'd love to have you join us. And if you have other questions, please reach out. We're here to help you and help you move forward as we get started. And I can't wait till next Thursday when we get to have our kickoff call. So hopefully I'll be talking to you then. And in the meantime, we will be in touch. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.